one. This is from SAT number 13, international test. And okay, so let's jump in. So 31 says, in passage one, Douglas characterizes Banks' labor policy in Louisiana as. So the way that we need to solve this one is we're not given any text, we're not given any lines. So what we have to do is go back to passage one. We're going to look for, how does Douglas characterize Banks' labor policy? So really, we'll just scan for Banks' labor policy. We'll scan for any words associated with that. And we'll just kind of look for, what does he have to say about it? It's the first question out the gate, so we can expect probably it'll be earlier in the text, earlier in the passage. But with paired passages, the question order rule is not as firm, so it could really be later as well. But let's just focus here on this first paragraph. So right off the bat, we get this. I hold that Banks' policy is a chief danger at the present moment, that it practically enslaves the Negro and makes the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 a mockery and a delusion. So that's one thing that he says right there, that it's a chief danger, right? And it makes the Emancipation Proclamation a mockery and a delusion. Later, we see General Banks mentioned again, right? To determine for the so-called freedmen when and where and at what he should work, etc. It is absolute slavery. And then he says here, it defeats the beneficent intention of the government if it has beneficent intentions in regards to the freedom for our people. So this is sort of the second line or the second text that I think could answer our question or tells us the best about what Douglas thinks about Banks' labor policy. The first one you see up here, he says that it enslaves the Negro and that it makes the Emancipation Proclamation a mockery and delusion. Here he says it is absolute slavery and it defeats the beneficent intention of the government. So I think both of those sort of had the same thing, which is that he thinks the forced labor policy is one, a type of slavery, and he thinks two, that it sort of defeats the purpose of the Emancipation Proclamation, or what he says, the beneficent intention of the government. So let's check this out. A says, inconsistent with Banks' supposed opposition to slavery. So nowhere in the passage, especially this first paragraph, but really none of the rest of the passage, even though I don't have it printed there, does he talk about Banks and his opposition to slavery. So there's no way we could even say it's inconsistent with it because it doesn't talk about the supposed opposition to slavery. So we could eliminate that one. Answer choice B says that it is contrary to the purpose of the government's abolition of slavery. Contrary to the purposes of the government's abolition of slavery. This one would seem to match because, as we saw up here, it makes the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 a mockery and delusion, and it defeats the beneficent intention of the government. So both of those, beneficent intention of the government, but even better, the Emancipation Proclamation, that would be the government's abolition of slavery. And he says it's contrary. It makes it a mockery and delusion, one, and it defeats the purpose. So let's keep that one. Worse in many respects than the slavery system that it replaced. This is not the correct answer because nowhere really in the passage does Douglas say that it's worse than the slavery system. He says it is slavery, it's like slavery, but he doesn't ever say that it's worse than slavery, which would be kind of a very strong sort of not paradoxical, but a claim that you wouldn't expect. So for that passage, it's a little too just not something that we would expect, that a point that Douglas will be making or a SAT passage will be making, so we can eliminate C. And then we have D, which says it's an improvement over slavery, but it's still far from ideal. So definitely still far from ideal, right? And maybe an improvement over slavery, right? Although here, what he's doing is he's equating it. He said it is absolute slavery, right? It practically enslaves the Negro. So maybe he does think it's improvement of slavery, but he doesn't make that point here. He doesn't make the point in the passage. And the only point he does make is he draws an equivalence between them. So for that reason, D is not as good as B. We should eliminate, and choose answer choice B.